What's up, horror fans? Pete here from the Lassercast, where me and my good friend Danny, Dr. Zayas God, Torkel, talk about horror movies and streaming shows. Danny and I were born in the 80s, we grew up in the 90s, and we watched Tales from the Crypt when it was on Fox. And it was on HBO too, but that's when we started watching it. So it is on Shudder now, it is streaming. And just for fun, we decided to do a nice live recording talking about season 1 of Tales from the Crypt. Danny, how do you feel about doing a live recording right now?
It's the highlight of my day. I just had I went to the gym at 5:10 a.m. Eastern time, and then I went straight to work. I taught 6 classes, and now I'm here talking to you about Tales from the Crypt. I had a blast going back and rewatching these episodes. Some of them I remember like it was yesterday, and some of them I didn't really remember.
Yeah,
Um, but what I got such a kick out of was looking at the combination of this is 1989 and seeing the stars that they got in these episodes, and
right.
then the people they got writing and directing these episodes. It is like a
Mhm.
who's who of not even horror, just 80s cinema. And it really blew my mind. Like, and All Through the House, I think, is the most famous of these 6 episodes
Yeah,
because of the Christmas connection and everything. Uh, but you're looking at people we've interviewed. You interviewed Tom Holland on the Lassercast, the director of Fright Night and Child's Play. He directs an episode here. Mary Lambert, who later that year would direct Pet Cemetery, is here. Robert friggin Zemeckis, who spent the 80s doing a series of movies called Back to the Future. Uh,
yeah.
and then would go on to win an Oscar for Forrest Gump in 1994. Walter Hill, who directed The Warriors. Uh, Howard Deutsch, who was a very popular teen movie director. He did Some Kind of Wonderful, which is one of those like kind of lost 80s movies that I love, as opposed to like The Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink.
Yeah.
It's just like a who's Fred Decker wrote a couple of these uh episodes. Fred Decker directed Night of the Creeps and Monster Squad.
Oh
Uh
shit.
so it's like Richard Donner directed episode 3 of this show. It is really just a cavalcade of famous writer, directors, and actors in just these 6 episodes, and you could really understand why this show immediately got the following that it did from people our age and a little bit older, and why it has been in such demand for these generations, almost like decades. This show has been not available on streaming. Like it was put out like on like season by season DVD back in the day, and if you
Right.
didn't buy it on DVD, it's just kind of been like this weird beloved lost media that
Yeah.
Shudder has procured this month, and they're going to be putting all the seasons. They have seasons 1, 2, and 3 out now, and 4, 5, and 6, I believe, will be coming later, either in the month or next month.
Nice. Yeah, and there's 7 seasons altogether.
Oh,
The show
seven
ran
seasons.
from June 1989 to July 1996. I want to just do a real quick lecture because I realized how important this show is to me. Right? I
Mhm.
just real quick, I'll make it 30 seconds. You can time me. So basically, comics were huge, huge during the time of World War II, right? But what people don't realize is that comics, a huge part of the comics industry was horror comics. And so you had Tales from the Crypt, and then you had all these other titles that were like Tales from the Crypt, and they were all being put out by EC Comics, right? So the comics industry made some of its money off of horror comics. Then this guy named Frederick Wortham, he comes around and he writes this book called Seduction of the Innocent, which blamed the rise on juvenile delinquency and crime on comic books. So they had to make this thing called the Comics Code, and everything that was in a comic that could be suggestive or graphic, they had to take out. So like horror comics helped make comic books like this huge industry. And then they basically had to get rid of all the horror comics, and superheroes basically kept them going for decades. Now, there's starting to be more horror comics now, but like we wouldn't have a comics industry if it wasn't for something like Tales from the Crypt. Then
Yeah,
there's one more point.
I was gonna say,
Right.
didn't Marvel just announce they're gonna do like an entire horror line with like Fantastic Four and X-Men and
Yeah, you're starting to sound like Brian over there, man. Yeah,
I was
yeah,
gonna
that is.
say you sound like a guy who should have a separate comic book centric YouTube channel.
Yes, yes. Comic books transform, guys. Go check it out too. That one person that's watching right now, you can like it while you're listening to this too. Thank you for watching, by the way. You're awesome. But anyway, let me finish my lecture real quick. So then HBO has this show, comes out in 1989, and HBO is mainly known for making putting on movies, right? And that's their main audience, but they have a few original shows like this one. And this got an audience for HBO. And then eventually we got The Sopranos, and then essentially like what we consider to be television now, whether it's streaming or on TV, is really from HBO. So like Tales from the Crypt in two ways has like really, really impacted our culture, especially genre culture.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. Like for me, this was a sneak into the living room. Like the first time I ever remember setting alarms for myself was setting my alarms for like 11:50 p.m. so that I would
Yeah,
wake up, sneak out of my room, go into the living room, and turn on Channel 5 because I didn't have HBO as a kid. I didn't have cable. And midnight on Channel 5, they would play episodes of Tales from the Crypt. And it was just like I remember in the first house that I lived in that I moved out of that house in January of 1990. So I must have been watching like these when they were on. Uh and it it really was, from whether it was like Scooby Doo as a cartoon and the ghost stories of Scooby Doo, but like this is one of those things that 100% I credit with getting me into horror. And I think that what makes it so accessible is that yes, it's on HBO, but and there is like a slight bit of nudity in these episodes, but it's
like
even like the gore is not it's so tongue in cheek that it's not wildly over the top. It's not like, crazy sex scenes and, terrifier levels of gore. It does, and the Crypt Keeper brings it all together in a way that makes it feel very gateway horror. And I feel like for people of our ages, people whose age starts with a 4, it was one of those gateway horror drugs for our generation. Whether you had HBO or you stayed up on Channel 5, it really was.
yes. Yeah, well, say what you will about the nudity and the sex. That episode with Amanda Plummer, where she's like a newlywed, they might not have shown nudity in that episode, but boy, did they make a lot of noise when they were banging in that
Yeah.
episode. They were like having like roaring orgasms, like ah. There's a lot of nudity in that first episode with William Sadler. That's what I wanted to talk about. Was there's all these actors that me watching this when I'm like 10 years old, I don't know who these people are. I know who like Arnold Schwarzenegger is, right? When I'm 10 years old, maybe Tom Hanks or somebody, right? I didn't know who William Sadler was. I didn't know who Joe Pantoliano was, or Amanda Plummer. Like I didn't know these people. And now watching it, I'm like, holy shit, they were in an episode of Tales from the Crypt. Like it's making me really excited to see who else is in this show.
What's really funny though is uh you look at again the cast lists, the writers, the directors, and there's a clear connection to Goonies. You have Richard Donner directing the episode with Joe Pantoliano, who was in Goonies. He's one of the Fratelli brothers.
Right.
And Mary Ellen Trainor, the mom from Goonies, is the one who kills her husband in And All Through the House.
Right.
Uh, the guy she kills, who's only in the episode for a brief moment, is the wild sadomasochistic coach in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Right. Right.
Larry Drake was from LA Law.
Right.
There's also a Batman 89 connection,
Right.
uh, because you have Robert Wool uh, there. Robert Wool in the episode, Richard Donner directed Superman. Robert Wool stars in Batman later that year.
Right.
It's just really, really interesting looking at the casts here, and like, oh my god, I know that. And that I so when I was getting Charlotte into horror movies, it always helped if she recognized an actor from
Right.
something else. If she recognized an actor from another movie or from a TV show she watched, it was always helpful in getting her to be like interested in sitting and watching this new movie. And like, I feel like that mindset was me watching these when I was younger, where like, oh, that's one of the bad guys from Goonies. That's the mom from Goonies. That's Leah Thompson, who's in, so many 80s movies, from All the Right Moves to Some Kind of Wonderful, Back to the
That's
Future. Oh my God. Yeah, of course, Back to the Future. Uh,
right.
so you're watching these, and then of course they get even better when you get older. And then like, you brought up Amanda Plummer, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, Amanda Plummer, Pulp Fiction, So I Married an Axe Murderer, all these amazing things. uh and now as an adult you look back, and now it's more exciting to see who wrote and directed the episodes, where it's like, holy crap, look at these big name stars that they
Right.
got to do this.
Right. Yeah, they're the kind of people that would be referenced or as the talking heads in Search of Darkness, which you guys want to go check out that video of ours. We just covered In Search of Darkness, 1995 to 1999. And in that documentary, they cover the two Tales from the Crypt spin-off movies, Demon Knight and Bordello of Blood. So,
Yeah,
I mean, like,
Demon Knight starring William Sadler, who is the basically the only main character, the only real character. I think he's the only actor listed in the opening credits of that first episode.
yeah.
Which another thing that I thought that I was reminded about watching this was the creativity of the title sequence, of the titles.
Oh,
Um, there's that, and then the opening Danny Elfman music with
oh
the
my God.
tracking shot from the gate, through the gate, up to this giant haunted house,
Yeah.
down into the basement, around the spire, through the secret passage,
Yeah.
to the casket of the Crypt Keeper, who John Cassier has been playing since 1989, and he still does conventions. And I've seen him at conventions where, like, instead of getting his autograph, you can have him like leave voicemails or leave your uh phone voicemail. Like, he'll be like, I'm not home, boils and ghouls.
Dude, that was spot on, man. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just loved seeing the Crypt Keeper again. You know what I'm saying? Like, as an adult, you see it and you're like, oh, okay, it's a puppet. I remember as a kid, I was like, wow, that fucking thing, like, that looked like a real creature. As a kid, it just seemed like he was a real creature talking to you. He seems a little bit more subdued, at least in this first season. Like, he's a little bit quieter and, just not as in your face. But I mean, that could just be me looking back from when I was a kid watching this show.
No, I definitely felt that. I think as we get into seasons 2, 3, and beyond, I'm pretty sure we're going to see the evolution of John Cassier's like Crypt Keeper persona take it up a notch.
Yeah,
because he's like I'm always thinking about Demon Knight. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and he's so wildly over the top in that movie. It's like every line out of his mouth is a crazy pun. And I feel
right.
like they, like first season, only 6 episodes, you kind of have to sell the plot a little bit. So you don't want to go, hell for leather right away.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we should talk about the individual episodes and just like what we liked about them. I'll say right off the bat, one of the things I liked a lot was the last shot of each episode. You could tell that they're trying to mimic a comic pattern. Like I was saying before, each of these episodes are based on specific comic issues. So, like when the episode ends and they show William Sadler, getting fried in an electric chair, and the woman in all through the house just like screaming on the steps. I'm like, that's a comic book panel right there. Like it's just so cool to think that each of these is based on a comic book issue. I didn't realize that.
And
The
all through the house is also based on a scene from the 1972 Amicus Tales from the
Yeah,
Crypt with, oh, damn it, I'm
Joan
going to get.
Collins.
Is it? Yes, I believe it is Joan Collins in the role of the woman who kills her husband.
Yeah, it's either Joan Collins or Elizabeth Taylor. I think it's Joan
No, no,
Collins.
I think it's Joan Collins. Definitely not Elizabeth Taylor.
All right,
Uh,
well then there we go. Yeah, yeah.
but yeah,
No, good.
well, also I like, these are also, and again, this goes back to like the comic idea and horror comics in general, but they're all morality plays. It's like
Right.
it's always a person who's not necessarily evil. Now, some of them are, but they're not.
Yeah.
It's more of like a really terrible character flaw amplified to 11. Like like William Sadler in the first episode, he's a regular guy, he's an executioner, he works for the state, and when he gets laid off, and at the same time he gets laid off, the state gets rid of the death penalty, and now he feels like there's no justice taking place in the world, so he becomes a murderer. He becomes almost like an early Dexter character,
Yep. Yep.
except he's not
Vigilante.
treated. What?
He's a vigilante.
Yeah, effectively. And, eventually his time runs out, he gets caught, and, you know, it's morale, it's like the Aesop fable. He ends up, he's the executioner who kills people through electrocution. He ends up in the electric chair to end the episode. And it's like characters like that. Joe Pantoliano's character in episode 3 is not necessarily an evil character. He just feels like he became too prideful and lost track of what made him a human being, and
Yeah.
it comes back to bite him in the ass at the end. That was an episode I remember watching
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, I remember him being in the casket at the end and like freaking out. I remember that William Sadler episode. I think I remember all of them, especially the what's her face, the Leah Thompson one, because I always remember her dropping that mold in the middle of the street at the end of the episode. It's kind of funny how they can edit these for television and make them, be able to show them on Fox at this point. The William Sadler one, it's just basically him like talking to the camera for most of the episode, like you said, and he's got some really great lines of dialogue. It definitely feels like one of those sort of like American Psycho type books where you got this really cynical, like almost like a Catcher in the Rye, this jaded guy who's just talking about how much society sucks, and then the tables turn on him at the very end, which you can see a mile coming away. You can always see the ending coming a mile away for each of them.
Yeah, they're not
Like,
trying to rewrite. They're not trying to rewrite the book in these. They're
right.
27 minutes, probably less than that if you include the opening Crypt Keeper stuff and then like the little outro with the Crypt Keeper. They're like
Yeah.
25 to 26-minute TV episodes. So they kind of have to go like bang, bang, bang. And like,
Right.
like you said, like an average comic book doesn't take you that long to read. And an average Tales from the Crypt episode doesn't take you that long to watch. And
Right.
like comics, you can kind of binge through them if you like what you're getting.
Oh yeah, a comic could be like 22 pages, and with Tales from the Crypt, it's most likely that they had multiple stories within one comic, right? And a usual comic, like a regular comic, can just take about 10 minutes to read, tops, right? So with the Joe Pantoliano one though, it was kind of funny because I'm like, okay, what's going to happen is he's going to remember that he used up all of his lives too early, and then he's thinking about the cat. I thought it was really funny. The proposal for it was, we're going to take this gland that gives cats 9 lives, and we're going to surgically attach it to you. And so then at the very end, he realizes, oh well, the cat fucking died for us to get the gland. But you were talking about before that these characters, maybe they're good people or decent people, but then they have like one major flaw. I did feel like Joe Pantoliano was a bad person because like he kills the scientist that makes him have
Oh,
9 lives, you
yeah.
know, and then his girlfriend kills him too at one point too, which I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And it didn't kill Robert Duvall though. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I realize, like, yeah, the guy in the Amanda Plummer episode was going to kill her.
Right.
Uh, the Leah Thompson kills her pimp or kills like
Yep.
one of the Johns at the beginning. Obviously, Mary Ellen Trainor murders her husband. Uh,
Yeah.
it, I love that episode so much. I have that on a T-shirt somewhere.
Oh, really?
The Larry Drake Santa Claus on a
Yeah.
T-shirt somewhere, and I've actually shown that to my horror movie club at school. Uh, when it was like the last one before the holidays, I did like a Christmas theme, and I showed them both the original Tales from the Crypt movie scene, and then I showed them that episode, and that's how we like killed the hour
Nice.
together. And the students liked this one better, I think, because it was newer, um, less grainy and British. But yeah, like the sense of humor, the daughter bringing out Santa Claus. And Larry Drake years before Dr. Giggles and Darkman.
Right.
Just great stuff. Like, yeah.
Yeah, he's real menacing looking. That one image of him right behind her with like the blood on his face, that's a real iconic image right there.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
it's funny because we keep mentioning all these episodes, but we haven't mentioned the last episode out of all 6 of them. It's funny because it almost feels out of place. And I think it's because the subject matter is so different. Everything else is about kind of like young people trying to, get on some kind of scheme, get away with murder. Uh, and then this last one is about this elderly couple that the guy is retired from work and he's having a very difficult time adjusting to life as a retired person. It's got a crazy fucking last shot, but I don't know. I just like that. I felt like that character, the main character in that, was the most unlikable out of everyone in these 6 episodes. What do you think?
Yeah. Do you know what that always reminded me of? That always reminded me of the last uh scene in Creep Show, the original Creep Show,
Oh
where
yeah,
the older guy from 12 Angry Men is like fighting off the cockroaches, and then like the cockroaches just like come out of him, and like, oh god. And that image of him being taxidermied at the end always haunted, like that was like one of the things that like legitimately creeped me out. I remember like getting scared by that
yeah,
when I was younger. Um and yeah, that was, M. Emmett Walsh, great character actor. Like he's the type of guy whose name from credits and you've seen in a million movies.
right,
Um and yeah, it also fits in very well with the idea of Mary Lambert directing that, given that she would do Pet Cemetery. The idea of like, you know, uh, killing animals and animals, being the source of the anger and all these things. I also
Yeah.
like that his wife, who ends up killing him, is played by Helen Roper from Three's Company,
Ah,
Audra Lindley.
right, right. I just love the fucking dog that has the glowing eyes. The taxidermy dog. That fucking cracked me up. I kind of forgot that. I thought that was a weird episode to end the first season on. You know what I'm saying? Like it felt like maybe it would have been in the middle, and maybe you have like, Lover Come Hack to Me as the last episode. I don't know. Like,
That's the episode that I had the least amount of memories about.
yeah,
The Love Come Hack to Me, and that was the episode that I was left really floored by. I loved that episode to the point where I would love if somebody took that script and expanded that out into a movie.
yeah,
And like you could have a movie where like the house is where it turns out you have a female serial killer who like marries these guys to kill them so that she can like get pregnant to fulfill some like family destiny,
yeah,
and then the guys who are killed, the husbands who are killed, are now ghosts in the house trying to warn the next like husbands.
yeah.
I thought that was such a cool thing. And then I looked up who wrote the episode, and it was Michael McDowell, who wrote Beetlejuice
Oh
and
shit.
The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I'm like, of course he wrote those movies because they're great ghost stories and haunted house movies with a comedic flair. And Amanda Plummer is just great whenever you need somebody to like cackle and overact in like just a glorious way. She's one of
Yeah.
my favorites. Did we ever talk about the Stephen King adaptation, Needful Things, the movie with Ed Harris?
I feel like we had to have, right? Because we talked about the book, didn't we?
Yeah, she is so good in that movie. She plays like
Yeah.
a quiet town woman, and then she ends up having this like violent knife fight with another woman in town, and freaking awesome. She's one of my like low key. She was in The Prophecy with Christopher Walken, another one of my favorite friggin' movies from the uh I In Search of Darkness 1990s wheelhouse. Uh yeah, like I thought I thought it was weird to start like your first episode ever is like a talk at the screen, one actor kind of only. I thought that was a weird. I do agree with you. I think the bookends to this 6 episode first season are strange. Uh,
Yeah.
but I also don't think there's a necessarily weak episode in
No.
this. The one thing that I laughed at in retrospect was uh Leah Thompson looking old still looks
Oh.
exactly like Leah Thompson. And the guy like is like, "Who are you? Get out of my house. I'll shoot you." And I'm like, "It's fucking Leah Thompson with like old lady cheeks. Like, come on, man."
No, okay, I agree with you on that. But I also want to point out that in that episode, the only thing that I thought was weak in the season, I actually thought Leah Thompson's acting was bad in that episode.
I think she
Like,
tried to go too hard on like the hard New York accent.
exactly, exactly. That's
And
exactly it. Yeah.
I I have to think that that was like directed for her,
Mhm.
like we want you to be like, because like it made me feel like the line of dialogue from Back to the Future where she's like, "No, Biff, I'm not that kind of girl," except if she was like a 50s New York greaser, like, "Hey, Biff, yo, I'm not that kind of girl, you know." And yeah, that episode. So I ranked the episodes in terms of
Okay.
and I don't know if you did, but
I did not.
I okay. Well, I ranked Only Sin Deep. That's the Leah Thompson, directed by Howard Deutsch, written by Fred Decker episode, at the bottom. Again,
Okay.
fun episode. I just between Leah Thompson's accent and I thought some of the stuff was a little silly in that, like, again, it's Tales from the Crypt, so silly is always going to be there. Um,
Yeah.
I had Collection completed, which was the final episode in the season, as my next
Okay.
lowest. So that was rated fifth out of sixth. I
Sure.
had the first episode with Bill Sadler, the man who was death, as number four. And then
Okay.
I loved the top three on my list. I love Come Hack to Me. I rank third only because the other two episodes really mean more to me. Like I like when I think of my memories watching Tales from the Crypt
Yep.
as a kid, I remember Dig That Cat, He's Real Gone, the Joe Pantoliano, has nine lives of a cat. Robert Wool as the crazy,
Yep.
um, carnival barker. He basically is playing his character in Batman.
Right.
I love Robert Wool though. I actually used to watch Arliss, so a huge
Nice.
Robert Wool fan. And then my favorite episode of the season, again because of how much it meant to me as a kid growing up, was an All Through the House. Watching the mom from Goonies kill the evil coach from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and then be stalked by L.A. Law's Larry Drake as a evil, crazy Santa Claus was an all timer.
Wow, Danny, I think that our ranking is very, very similar. I think that I would put an All Through the House, though, underneath the other two, like Dig That Cat or whatever. I think I would put that as number one, and then I would put the William Sadler one first, second, and then All Through the House. But otherwise, it's very similar ranking.
Yeah. I don't think
Yeah.
we should do rankings for seasons 2 and 3 because the episodes, the season length gets progressively longer. I think season 2 has 16 episodes and season 3 has over 20. So I
Oh
think that
shit.
would be crazy if we were like number 19. I
Right.
know you and Brian used to do that with MCU movies, and it's still like it got to a point where you're like, oh my God, there's 38 of these. I can't do a full
Right.
ranking anymore.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm thinking, is there anything else that's coming out that we should be talking about right now besides this?
Well, just in terms of like horror movies that are out in theaters, um, I have a short review of Hokum up on the
Mm,
channel. I have a short review of Lee Cronin's The Mummy, not to be confused with anybody else's The Mummy.
right.
Uh, I have like 60-second short reviews of those. I have some short reviews of other horror movies that have come out. They Will Kill You, Faces of Death. You mentioned we did our review of In Search of Darkness, 1995 to 1999, which again, very similar to Tales from the Crypt, really stoked the nostalgia, the horror nostalgia for us. In terms of movies that are coming out, Obsession comes out this week, and that is making lots and lots of noise. The director of that movie, Curry Barker, has already been slated to be the next person to do a Tales from the Crypt, Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
Oh
Um,
shit.
yeah, so I've spoken to a bunch of people in the know in the horror community, and they are raving about Obsession. Somebody who saw it at a festival last year said it was the talk of the festival. So yeah, I'm very excited. Thursday night, it's coming to the local Regal here, so I'll probably go see it on Thursday.
Okay, yeah, I might be able to see it on Saturday night if you want to do a review on Sunday.
Yeah, no, definitely. That sounds good. And then maybe the week after, that'll give us 2 weeks to knock out 16 episodes, I believe, for season 2 of Tales from the Crypt, and then we can break that down next time.
Shit, yeah, okay, all right. Well, so you guys know what to look forward to. I know there's one of you watching right now. I've seen some people pop in and out. But if you haven't subscribed to the Laughtercast, please do, man. We could always use some more views. We could always use some more subscribers. We are grateful for those of you that watch.
Oh,
And you know, if you ever
before
want,
before we end, I wanna address something slightly controversial.
oh
Um,
God, okay.
not with you. No,
Oh,
you're not controversial. You're squeaky clean. Um,
you should have heard what I was about to
so
say, though.
Tales from the
I
Crypt,
yeah,
after all these years, has finally become available to watch on Shudder. Shudder is in the middle of a kind of a fan backlash right now because they canceled The Last Drive-In. The last episode of The Last Drive-In was the final, like, Friday night double feature live marathon, live back to back, and they're gonna do like they did the first of four specials with Joe Bob and Darcy, that are scheduled to come out later this year, all the way, I believe, through Christmas. But the fact that they officially canceled and will not be having any more seasons of Joe Bob's Last Drive-In, the Friday night double features, has really irked a lot of Shutter fans. And um, I am on Twitter again, mainly just to share videos and talk to certain people in the fields that I'm a fan of. And a lot of people I know were canceling their Shutter subscriptions, and I looked into it. Basically, Joe Bob, the guy who was working for Shutter, was a guy named Josh Sapan, and he like worked with Joe Bob in the past, hired him to come back in 2018 to do the first marathon that like broke the internet. And then they did 7 seasons of The Last Drive-In, and I love The Last Drive-In. My only thing is I understand people who are canceling their Shutter subscriptions if and only if the only reason you signed up for Shutter was Joe Bob. You and I started this channel during the pandemic,
yes,
um,
sir.
and we were covering Shutter stuff all the time. I go
Right.
back to when Shutter first debuted, back when I was writing for Geeks of Doom. We got like the press release of AMC's brand new horror streaming service. And
Right.
for a decade, Shudder has been easily the best pure horror streaming service out there.
Okay.
And my only point is, look, I'm not going to try to convince anybody to give their money away to a company they don't support. And if
Yeah.
you are one of those horror fans who literally joined Shudder to pay a monthly subscription, uh, because of Joe Bob's Last Drive-In, then sure, save your money, cancel the service. But if you have been a decade-long Shutter subscriber the way I have,
Yeah.
I feel like canceling as a protest is cutting off your nose to spite your face. You're
Yeah.
giving up on what is still, because yes, Joe Bob as a weekly Friday night double feature is going away. We just got Tales from the Crypt. We're still getting tons of original programming. We're still getting some of the best horror content out there. I still go to IFC Center in Manhattan all the time. They do Shutter showcases there. I don't work for Shutter. I'm not being paid by Shutter. I don't want anybody to think that this is, me doing a plug. I just love horror, and I feel like I don't want the backlash against Shudder for canceling The Last Drive-In to end up leading to the canceling of Shudder or the shutting down of Shudder as a horror streaming service.
Yeah.
So it was a great 7-year run. I love The Last Drive-In. It became part of my Sunday mornings because I officially got too old to stay up for two movies back to back on a Friday night.
Right.
Um, and I'm gonna watch the Joe Bob marathon, not marathons, the specials that come up later this year. But I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face. I love the content that Shudder has. They've really hit it out of the ballpark with foreign horror films in the last few years.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all I wanted to bring up because that's kind of like an elephant in the room when talking about Shudder right now.
Yeah.
If you were to like go onto certain social media places, you'll see a lot of negativity towards Shudder as a streaming service. Uh, so
Yeah, but
I still pay for it. I still support it.
yeah.
It sucks that Joe Bob isn't going to be on every week, and that we're not going to get a new season of The Last Drive-In. But Joe Bob, even if you read his interviews, he's happy because he got fired at like the peak of his like powers, and he knows he's going to be able to basically go anywhere he wants and continue doing what he does.
Well, good for him, Jesus. But I mean, don't you think it's kind of a conflict of interest to talk about Joe Bob getting fired because, like, Shudder has asked us to become the new horror hosts, right? Like the Lasser cast, because we have so many viewers, our YouTube numbers are so big. We're going to replace Joe Bob and Darcy.
Well, they know they could pay us with literal peanuts.
Yes, yes, yes. You know, it's weird, like doing this live stream, there's a fucking $ thing right by the comments over here. I'm kind of curious to touch it, but like I don't know if someone left us a tip, but I mean if you did, you're awesome. I kind of think there went the viewers once I said that. So but anyway,
I was gonna take my shirt off.
Oh, nice, nice. No, it's not OnlyFans, but we still probably get the same amount of views. But anyway, guys, yeah, Danny's got a good point. Definitely stick with Shudder because I agree. I actually really love watching Last Drive-In, but I was not a person that would watch it regularly. And so I have enjoyed watching things on Shudder that I would have had to have gone to the theater to see, and I could just watch it at home. There's many movies I've watched where I'm like just really grateful that I had the opportunity thanks to Shudder. But we're not getting paid by them. We're not getting paid by anybody. We're just living off of your views. So yeah, give us a like, subscribe to us, and we promise that if we meet a sexy Staten Island prostitute like Leah Thompson, I'm Danny. I'm fucking it up. This is what happens when we go live. We'll see y'all next time.